Failures Podcast. Today, we're talking about mental masturbation. No, not that masturbation. Information entertainment, the trap of infotainment, and why smart men who consume so much content stay stuck. This one is for the watcherpreneur, not the entrepreneur, the guy who watches other entrepreneurs do entrepreneurial things and never start their own business. You watched all the videos, you bought all the courses, and you're asking yourself, why am I still stuck? Why haven't I made progress? Well, the truth is, you're stuck because you're trying to learn how to cook by reading cookbooks. You're trying to learn how to surf by watching surf videos. You're trying to learn how to start a campfire by listening to a podcast about fires and how they started. It comes a point where you have to actually take action. There's unlimited information and content. And if you want, you could be on that wheel forever. And no one gets great in one day, not even Timothee Chalamet. I have a good story that I'm going to share later about how he has perfected his craft. And a lot of you young guys look up to him. Rich, what's your advice to anyone that's stuck in this rat wheel of mental masturbation? Have you ever experienced this? Do you sympathize with this guy we're talking to?
I do, bro, and I'm a little triggered because I feel like you're talking about me for a second. But
I gathered that from your reactions when I was doing the intro.
Nah, but listen, if we're being honest, if you're watching this, I encourage you to try this because I tried this and it felt like a gut punch to the face. Go on ChatGPT and prompt it, out of everything I've ever shared with you, what can you determine about me as a person? And watch what it gives you in return. Bro, ChatGPT was basically like, you're very smart, highly intelligent, but you don't finish anything. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, fuck this computer, right? And it gave me a list of things, and I want to share that list with you, Just. It gave me a list of projects that I was prompting it that I never finished. One of them was cryptoswag.ai. I wanted to create an AI generated crypto type of shirt or mugs that companies can go and get their merch. I had this idea for a website called milliondollarbaby.shop where you can purchase like lifestyle clothing. And it was a play on the $1 Million Baby song that was on the radio at the time.
Yeah.
I had another idea for an IT consultancy firm called IT Volume, right? So I had all these ideas and ChatGPT was like, hey, by the way, do you know you've never finished any of these projects? And I was just like, damn, I'm not a closer, bro. I'm a starter, but I can't close things. So
wow.
I felt personally attacked.
So this episode is about you 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't until I got intentional about things and chose a very specific path that things became clearer for me. And that noise of just being overstimulated, over consuming content, just got a lot less of a burden for me.
Yeah, Rich. I mean, I'm gonna spit out a few common phrases that came from our research for this episode. And it was the perfect plan, the optimized plan, the failure-proof plan, the plan that will get me there quickest. These are phrases that came up a lot. What do you think those phrases mean to you? And how can you translate that as somebody who has also experienced this and has suffered from, decision action paralysis?
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's not bad to want to educate yourself. It's not bad to do your research. It's not bad to gather information to make the best decision possible. The problem is when you're over consuming that content, when you're watching too many productivity videos, when you're letting the algorithm overfeed you information, it gets to a point where you start to ask yourself, am I ever going to take action? Because mentally you're confusing the consumption of this content with productivity. Just because you're consuming productivity content does not mean you're being productive. And that's sort of what we're here to unpack.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you nailed it. This episode is dedicated to the information gatherer. All these things that you've hoarded and you plan on going back to become excellent at, and you never actually get around to. There is a business, I don't know if it's going to be a successful business, but I've seen it, that essentially you allow an app to comb through all your screenshotted photos, and it takes all these recipes that you screenshotted and you were going to make, and it creates a PDF for you that packages it all into one thing because you spent the last 4 years screenshotting all these dessert and baking recipes that you were allegedly gonna make for your boyfriend or your family or your girlfriend, and you didn't do any of it. And there's apps out there now that have identified a multi-million-dollar market of people. You said you were gonna do these things, you archived all this content. Well, let me organize that for you because you obviously forgot about it. The fact that there's a multi-billion-dollar industry dedicated to that alone lets me know that this person listening to this episode is not alone. Rich and you're not alone. I have this problem too. If you look through my apartment, I have notes everywhere of things that I'm supposed to be doing. And if you ask me what I actually did, it's the opposite. I get around to 2 things per day, but it's typically the thing that's most important to me that I get around to. And I think that's where we want to drive this episode towards. Is we want to help you alleviate the stress and the pressure of having a million things on your mind that you want to get done and help you focus on 1 or 2 things that are most important, that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, going to give you the biggest return on your time and energy. And I think that's the fear, Rich, is everyone is looking for a shortcut, but not everybody's looking for action. And sometimes in the action is where you find the shortcut because you get so much more information back.
Yeah. And some of these folks might also feel like the more you consume and delay that action, the more you're preventing that life ass whooping that life is going to give you from taking that action.
Do you think that's the core of the problem? Like, what do you think is the core of the hesitation to take action?
Yes, bro.
Rich, one person that came to mind that I've been watching a lot of content on him and trying to learn a little bit more about him because I find him to be extraordinary at most of the things he does is Timothee Chalamet. I watched Marty Supreme. I've seen the Bob Dylan movie. He's a big Knicks fan. You know, I love the Knicks. And I just got curious about this guy because he did a speech, and we'll show it in the YouTube edit. In his speech, he credited wanting to be one of the best, and he identified minimizing distractions young in order to master his craft as an actor, which has now allowed him to be a public figure. But he wouldn't have gotten here if he didn't dedicate, 18 years of his young life to only one goal. He only had one goal, and that was to be an actor. And he got into LaGuardia School for acting. And I didn't know anything about him until I went back and watched interviews. He did a really good interview on 60 Minutes about how he turned into the Bob Dylan character for the role he played in Bob Dylan. And it occurred to me, a lot of younger men watch content, but they're seeing the finished product of a lot of people that are already masters of their craft. And very rarely do they go back and try to understand how much a person like Timothee Chalamet, who was very successful and very popular, sacrificed a lot of his life in order to be an expert at one thing and one thing only. So to me, Timothee Chalamet is a great person to learn from because from my research and the interviews I watched, is this dude he was a bit of a recluse when it came to mastering his craft. He has a very strong policy whenever he plays an actor in a movie that he won't take the role unless he has 5 years to learn the character and develop the character. And he shuts down all his cell phone access and friends and family that could visit him on set in order to become the person that he's going to play in this movie. And I think that's impressive because he's a young man and I know a lot of people idolize him. But this dude will not let any friends and family on set, doesn't touch his cell phone for a few years until he perfects the craft and becomes the person that he wants to be in a role. And that kind of sacrifice and dedication to one thing and one thing only is the opposite of what a lot of these young men are suffering from, which is you have way too many side hustles, way too many engagements, way too many events you got to go to, way too many commitments. If Timothee Chalamet could learn how to play every instrument that Bob Dylan played in 7 years of training, that means 7 years ago he got the script and it took him 7 years to learn how to play every instrument that Bob Dylan played when he played the character. If you watch the movie, he's playing the guitar in like one scene. He's playing the accordion in maybe 2 scenes. It doesn't matter. He committed to the character. He committed to his craft. And that's why the performance in that role was so outstanding. But outside of that, it's the self-esteem and the knowledge that you have. Once you focus on one thing and one thing only, and you figure it out, you realize, man, I could be stacking a brick on top of a brick to create this one house, or I could split my day into 12 different phases and put different bricks on top of different bricks in different houses. And you'll see, you'll never get to the top If you minimize your focus and you focus on one thing, you can get really good at it. And then people will give you the rewards that you deserve for being good at one thing. And then maybe you can get better at another thing. So younger guy, somebody that I learned from and I wanted to share with our community is that if you admire Timothee Chalamet now, you have to admire him back then because he mastered his craft and he avoided distractions and focused on one thing and one thing only. So not my story, but a story from somebody that I thought was very impressive. And he's actually a really good actor.
Yeah, I love that story. And listen, too many decisions are paralyzing at the end of the day. I love that point you made. You have to choose one thing to become a master at. If you're on the pursuit of this numerical number that we've seen in a lot of self-help books, which is 10,000 hours, if you're on pursuit of that, they say the analogy is that after 10,000 hours of doing anything, you become either a master or you're entering mastery in that particular domain. You're never going to get to those 10,000 hours if you're indecisive about what lane you're choosing to be in. Right? Or like you said, you have 25 side hustles. Those 25 side hustles, you're never going to get 10,000 hours each on those things because you're too spread thin. So I love that, just limiting your decisions to one lane, going down that path, starting out, sucking, right? Feeling like you're not good, but iterating over time to the point where you become good is such a cheat code, bro. And I know that's something, we're doing today with this platform.